Hello everybody! It has been so long, a month to be exact, or maybe more. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to post this video, but it is nice to see y'all again. This video is just going to be a quick-ish update where I try to pack everything that has happened to me in the past 2 months into one summary video just to let you guys know how I've been doing, but I'm definitely going to be elaborating on a lot of the things that I'm going to touch on in this video later on when I get back to the States. As you can see, I'm currently in the dorm room of a hostel. I've been backpacking for a little more than 2 months now, and I have 3 weeks left before I go back to Shanghai for my flight to return to the US. Since my last update video was about my plans on backpacking China, I thought it would be fun to make this video about things that happened that I did not expect. And stick around towards the end because there will be some videos that I shot on the road. The first thing that I didn't expect is how much I would be a bridge between foreign travelers, especially Western travelers, in China and Chinese people, oftentimes because of the massive linguistic and cultural gap between people coming from the West and people in China. There's a lot of misunderstandings and frustrations on both sides. So whenever I was traveling with another foreigner who didn't speak Chinese, they would always tell me how grateful they were to finally have someone to explain to them what was going on around them, why people were pushing each other to get in line, why they were spitting on the road, all these cultural customs that they couldn't get used to. And if they were more used to these different cultural habits, at least they finally had someone who could help them translate the menu in a restaurant or kind of chat with locals and get a more immersive experience wherever we were. Through these experiences, I actually realized that I understood China a lot better than I thought I did, and it got to the point where locals would ask me, "Are you their tour guide? And how much are they paying you for this?" The third thing that I didn't expect in this trip was the kind of crazy cool people I would meet also backpacking in China. Before I started this trip, I wasn't really sure if I would meet other backpackers actually, just because based on what I've heard, almost everybody chooses to go to Southeast Asia instead of China because it's cheaper and simpler for Westerners. What I didn't know is that this would mean the backpackers who do come to China are crazy in a good way and down for a good adventure and not scared of a challenge. I met a Dutch girl who's biking from Singapore back to Holland, and when I met her she was already 8 months into her trip and in China, so she still has a long way to go. Another guy I met who's Swiss and actually a year younger than me, so he's 19. He was going to take a cargo ship all the way from southeastern China to the United States, but actually kind of messed up the American visa because you need a different visa to enter the country by boat. So instead he's hitchhiking from China back to Switzerland. And speaking of hitchhiking, after I met that guy who spoke zero Chinese, I was very inspired and I was like, wow, if he can hitchhike in China, then I totally can as well. But the idea of it still kind of freaked me out, so my first time hitchhiking in China was in Dunhuang, which I will get to later, with a Japanese girl who I met who had been hitchhiking a lot of China before that and happened to be going the same way as me. Since then, for about the past month, I've been traveling around almost exclusively by hitchhiking, both alone and with other friends I've met on the road. This is something I had kind of secretly hoped I would do during this trip, but definitely did not expect or rely on it. The fourth thing that I didn't expect about this trip is the route that I ended up actually taking as opposed to the one I had planned. So I did start by going from Shanghai to Beijing, as I originally thought I would. Okay, I'm in my first overnight train. I'm going to Beijing from Shanghai right now. I booked the topmost bunk because it's the cheapest. I did not realize how high up this shit is. There's 3 bunks. In Beijing, one of the biggest highlights was hiking a part of the Great Wall that's pretty unrenovated and wild at sunrise with this friend I had just met at my hostel. Whoa! So cool! It's not even sunrise yet. We're already here. Go! Yeah! Enjoy this video of us gawking over these 2 Europeans who got stuck on the bottom of the wall and somehow managed to climb up into it. Oh my god.
Oh, they're getting up, they're getting up.
They made it?
Yeah, look, they're climbing.
No. No! Yeah, they're doing it. They broke through the Great Wall. They're doing it! After Beijing, I took another sleeper train to Xi'an, which in theory was supposed to be a cool city, but I just personally didn't have a ton of affinity with it. I met a friend in the beginning, but after that I spent a few days very much alone. The city was also very commercialized, so the ticket prices to anything fun were pretty high, and I wasn't willing to spend that money, so I was just kind of sitting around alone doing nothing for a few days, feeling kind of bummed out. But from there I took a train to the Gansu province, starting to head west to a place called Zhang, and things got a lot better from there. I met a lot of great people there at the hostel, and we went together to see the Rainbow Mountains. From Zhang, I took a train continuing west to Dunhuang. In Dunhuang, there's desert, which was really awesome to go visit. Hiking in the sand dunes in the Gobi Desert right now. Really need to pee, but what can I do about it? Town's down there. I'm not going down to pee. Woo! It's also famous for its thousands of years old Buddhist grottoes and the paintings inside specifically. My friend's uncle is a professional artist that specializes in copying these cave paintings with the original materials and methods, and going to visit his studio and chatting with him about art and Buddhism was definitely one of the highlights of that area.
以前没有放。
照片需要印下来吗？就是印出来。
有啊。
When we went to go visit the actual grottos, it was also Buddha's birthday, so I was very lucky in having that experience. When I was in Dunhuang, I met a friend who was hitchhiking in the same direction towards the Xinjiang province, which I mentioned earlier, so we hitchhiked together to a place called Hami.
Where are we going, Cheese?
We're going to Xinjiang. Star. Two-star, only two-star. Yeah, no, not good.
That entire experience is a whole other story that I will touch on in a different video about Xinjiang specifically, but Xinjiang is a very, very politically sensitive region, and ethnically, linguistically, culturally, it's also very distinct from the rest of China, mainly because it's Muslim and its people are a bit more Turkish in their roots as opposed to similar to Han Chinese. A lot of shady shit went down there, so they are very cautious about foreigners poking around in the region, and there's a lot of restrictions put on foreign backpackers, especially there. So hitchhiking to Xinjiang, we were actually taken by 4 police cars that day. Hey. Just at the gas station being escorted by police. Once we got to Hami, we took a overnight train to Turpan. Kind of overnight because it started at like 2 or 3 in the morning and got there around 6, I think. But Turpan was super nice. I stayed at a great hostel there, probably one of my favorite hostels I've ever stayed at, and there was fruit everywhere. The grapes weren't ripe yet, but we saw the places where they dry them to make raisins. Wait, hold on. Raisin house.
Hi.
Raisin house. From Turpan, I kept taking trains west because I wasn't about to hitchhike with police again, and I stopped over in Urumqi, which is the technical capital of Xinjiang, for about a day. From Urumqi, I continued west to Ili, which is the last big major city in China before you get to the Kazakh border. So this is mainly where the route I had originally planned started becoming a bit different from what I actually did. And that is because I realized crossing the Kazakh border and coming back to the same day to renew my visa, which is multiple entry, was much simpler than I thought and much simpler than online websites had said. That being said, it was still definitely not simple, and it was a very long day, and once again, I will elaborate on that in a different video. Guys, I made it to Kazakhstan. I have some Russian food, Kazakh money. Officially made it back to China. Only took 7.5 hours to go back and forth. It's fine. Goodbye, scary customs gate. I won't miss you. From Ely, I took a plane to Kucha. Long story short, I was supposed to take a overnight train from Kucha to Kashgar. I just happened to be so lucky as to have my train delayed indefinitely that night. So the next morning I woke up, it still hadn't come, so I gave up and took a bus to the closest city I could get to, which was Aksu. From Aksu, I booked another overnight train to Kashgar, and this time I finally got there. 27 hours after the time of my original train to Kashgar, and I am finally going. Oh my god. I spent a few days in Kashgar, but immediately once I got there, the things that I wanted to do and the places I wanted to see a bit outside of the city proved to be not as easy as I thought it was. So I was frustrated, stressed out. I'd also spent 2 very long days with little sleep, shitty food, traveling all the way there. So I actually got a very high fever and was quite sick for a while. After that experience, I just wanted to get the hell out of Xinjiang province. I didn't want to take like the 25-hour train ride that you need to do. So I took a plane back to the capital city of the province, which is Urumqi, and from there I took another plane to the cheapest place I could find that was just out of there, which was Xining, the capital of Ching Hai province. This is another big point where my plans kind of diverted. I never meant to go to Ching Hai, but it's actually one of my favorite places in China now. I think it's the most underrated. Once again, I'm gonna make a whole nother video that's separate about that province. But basically, from Xining, which I stayed in for like a week, I think, because I loved it so much, I hitchhiked with a wonderful Polish friend I met to the Tibetan monastery town of Tongren, which is south. Hitchhiking the Tongren. God knows what to do with this. A lot of parts of Qinghai province are culturally and ethnically Tibetan, and they're semi-autonomous Tibetan prefectures. After Tongren, I continued hitchhiking to another monastery town called Xiahe, which is very close by. And after a few days there, I took a bus with 2 friends that I met who were going in the same direction to Langmusi, which is a different monastery town. This was probably my favorite place in China. It was so beautiful, the natural scenery, and very few people for what we experienced. After Xiahe, because I was hitchhiking now, I could only go so far in one day, so I went to Songpan. In Songpan, I didn't really do much, I just kind of used it as a stopover, but after like 2 days there, I went from Songpan to Chengdu, once again by hitchhiking.
The mushroom plate was very nice.
So I only stayed in Chengdu for a couple of days, and then I went kind of northwest to a place called Dujiangyan. This place is famous for its 2,000-year-old water system, which controls the river and prevents flooding, essentially making Chengdu the very prosperous place it is now. From Dujiangyan, it was also easier to hitchhike into the west of Sichuan, which is, once again, another Tibetan autonomous prefecture. And that brings me to where I'm at right now, which is Sigonyang Mountain, aka Four Girls Mountain, and tomorrow I might go climb the smallest of the 4 peaks. Made it to the top of the mountain, 5,038 meters. But yeah, that's where I'm at now, and I only have 3 weeks left to my trip, so unfortunately I don't have that much time for Yunnan province and Guizhou, Guangxi province, where I was gonna go before. But to be honest, I heard it's very touristy in this time anyways, so I'm very happy with my decisions and how my trip has gone. In these next 3 weeks, I'm gonna be spending a bit more time in the Tibetan area, going to Yunnan maybe for a few days, and then taking a train to see my friend in Hong Kong, and making my way back up to Shanghai. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I also hope that this maybe inspired you guys to get out there and travel more and to have more adventures. The world is a wonderful place, not as scary as what the media makes you think. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next video. Bye.